Being a good person is not the problem, but being too nice.
Yeah, that's where the trouble starts.
Right. That is exactly how people take advantage of you.
It really is.
Most people are taught to always be kind, to always say yes, and to, always put others first. But no one really tells you what happens when you do that too much.
And it's a really dangerous line to walk. The consequences of crossing it can be pretty severe.
Absolutely. And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive today. We are unpacking a massive stack of sources, everything from clinical psychology journals and therapy blogs to actual HR conference notes.
Yeah, and just to be clear up front, the goal here isn't to tell you to abandon your morals or become this cynical, mean person.
Right. Nobody wants that.
Exactly. What we're really doing is exploring that psychological line between genuine compassion and a chronic need to please that just, well, it destroys your own well-being.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the first major issue with being too nice is that you become incredibly easy to control.
You do. Because when you avoid conflict at all costs, people quickly learn they can push your limits.
Because they know you won't push back.
Precisely. To understand the root of this, you have to look at how the nervous system actually handles conflict. Like we said, it's not about this profound desire for harmony.
Right, it's fear.
Yeah, it's a paralyzing fear. Psychotherapists like Pete Walker, he's done a ton of work in this area. They point to a trauma-informed survival mechanism. It's called the fawn response.
Okay, so we've all heard of fight, flight, or freeze.
Exactly. But fawn is when appeasing a potential threat just becomes your automatic reflexive response to stress. You just yield.
But wait, let me challenge that a little bit. Isn't avoiding an argument just, I don't know, being polite, keeping the peace? It sounds like you're saying our brains are acting like a faulty smoke detector.
How do you mean?
Like treating a minor disagreement over where to get lunch the same way it treats a burning building.
That is actually a perfect analogy, because the difference between just being polite and the fawn response lies entirely in your internal state. An easygoing person compromises on lunch because they genuinely don't care. Their nervous system is totally calm. But someone trapped in a fawn response is reacting to that minor disagreement like it's a literal threat to their survival.
Wow.
Yeah, and the Psychology Today article we looked at frames this chronic niceness as an anxiety management tool. It's basically a psychological flak suit.
A flak suit. I like that.
Right. You wear it to protect yourself from what feels like this unpredictable, scary world. So you smile, you agree, you say yes, all to make sure no one gets upset.
Because someone else's displeasure feels physically dangerous to you.
Exactly. And for some people, this is magnified exponentially. Take neurodivergent individuals, especially those with ADHD. They often deal with rejection-sensitive dysphoria, or RSD.
Oh, right, where perceived criticism literally feels like a physical attack.
Yes. The brain just floods the body with stress hormones over, like the slight change in tone or an unreturned text. So avoiding conflict is a literal pain avoidance reflex for them.
It's emotional survival, but the tragic irony of that flak suit is that the more you wear it, the more people realize they can just walk all over you.
Yeah, because you won't fight back.
Which leads right into our second point. And it sounds unfair, but it's real. The more you tolerate everything, the less people value you. People lose respect for you.
It is brutal, but the behavioral data backs it up completely.
This brings up that really critical difference between being nice and being kind. The It Girl playbook source highlighted this perfectly using pop culture.
Oh, the Mean Girls example. I loved that.
Right. It's so clear. So Katie is nice. She sacrifices her own values just to fit in with the plastics and avoid rocking the boat. But Janice is kind. She actually cares, but she holds firm boundaries and tells the uncomfortable truth.
And they also use The Devil Wears Prada, right?
Yes. Andy is nice, constantly eager to please her boss at the expense of her own life. But Nigel is kind. He's helpful, but he has absolute boundaries. Nice prioritizes external harmony, but kind prioritizes internal respect.
Which perfectly mirrors the clinical definitions from Haley McGee's article. In psychology, that niceness is often called pathological altruism.
Pathological altruism? That sounds intense.
It is. It's an irrational willingness to harm yourself just to meet someone else's perceived needs, entirely out of fear. You're giving just to avoid rejection.
Whereas healthy altruism is just giving because you want to.
Right. It's driven by an intrinsic desire, no hidden agenda, and crucially, no fear of what happens if you say no.
So how does this pathological altruism actually show up in real life, like at work, for example?
Well, the Psychology Today piece talked about this concept called pre-compromising.
Oh, I loved this concept. It's like negotiating against yourself before you even walk into the car dealership.
Exactly. Before you even initiate the conversation, your brain is just running a worst-case scenario. You want the whole weekend off, but you assume your boss will say no.
So you only ask for Saturday.
Right. You give up half of what you need without the other person even asking you to. And when you do that over and over, you end up living this watered-down life.
Because you don't demand respect for yourself.
Yeah. And the consequence is people lose respect for your opinion because they know you'll just defer to whatever they want anyway.
Man, that is tough to hear. But it gets even darker, which is our third point. If you are walking around pre-compromising and constantly yielding, you don't just lose respect, you attract the wrong people,
You really do. Because kindness attracts everyone.
including those who want to use it.
Hmm.
And without boundaries, you just become this massive target for takers.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is the behavioral breakdown of social predators, like bullies and narcissists. There's this huge myth that they target weak people.
Right, like the classic schoolyard bully going after the small kid.
Exactly, but that's not actually true. The data from the Why People Do This source shows they don't target weakness, they target low resistance.
Wow. So you're saying the bully is essentially performing like a subconscious cost-benefit analysis.
That is exactly what they are doing. They are looking for the person who will cause them the least amount of friction. It's a process called dominance calibration.
Dominance calibration. Okay, how does that actually work in, say, an office?
An aggressor rarely starts with a massive insult. They test the waters. They'll interrupt you in a meeting or make a passive-aggressive joke at your expense.
Just to see what you do. Testing the fence for an electric charge.
Yes. And a person trapped in that anxiety flak suit, terrified of causing a scene, they're going to smile. They'll laugh off the joke and tell themselves they're just being the bigger person.
But the bully doesn't see it as taking the high road.
Not at all. They read it as compliance. When you smile and absorb that disrespect, you eliminate the social cost for the aggressor.
And behavior that carries no cost usually grows.
Exactly. So your untempered kindness is just misread as permission. You aren't just attracting the wrong people. You are accidentally giving them a green light to exploit you.
That is terrifying. Okay, so that's the external cost. But let's move to point 4 and look inward. Because when you focus entirely on others, you slowly forget yourself.
You do, and the internal toll is massive.
Over time, that completely ignoring of your own needs leads to deep frustration and just total burnout. One of the therapy sources asked a really profound question. Do your inside feelings match your outside actions?
Such a great diagnostic question. Because with healthy altruism, there's alignment. You look happy to help, and you actually feel happy.
But with people-pleasing, it's totally disconnected. It's like being a customer service rep who is, smiling warmly at the counter, while internally the entire computer system is on fire and crashing.
That is so accurate, and that exhaustion is highly documented.
Mhm.
If you look at the HR presentation from Monica Maxwell at Dove Lewis, they were in a 204/7 veterinary hospital.
Talk about a high-stress environment.
Right. And she detailed how managers fall into what they call the accepting strategy. They just absorb all the stress to shield their team.
Taking the extra shifts, answering the midnight texts.
Yeah, and human capacity is finite. These managers push themselves until they are literally crying in their cars before walking into the building.
Unbelievable. And there was a term in those HR notes for this state-feigned attentiveness.
Yeah, feigned attentiveness. It's a late-stage survival strategy. You're so drained you can't actually help, but you're terrified of looking unhelpful.
So you send that email at 11 p.m. saying, I'm on it, while you're just sitting frozen on the couch.
Exactly. It causes massive decision fatigue. You use so much cognitive bandwidth monitoring everyone else's moods that you literally can't make choices for yourself anymore.
And just suppressing those needs doesn't make them go away. You can't just nice away your own humanity.
No, you can't. The Psychology Today piece talked about how this leads to internalization, so depression, severe anxiety, and something called periodic acting out.
Yes. This explains why the absolute sweetest person in the office will suddenly explode in a hurricane of rage just because, the printer jammed.
The pressure cooker finally pops.
Oh.
The nervous system just can't contain the resentment anymore. Or it leaks out as passive-aggressive behavior.
Like agreeing to help a friend move, but showing up late, sighing the whole time, and doing a terrible job.
Right. And then, because you view yourself as this nice person, you feel crushing guilt for exploding or being passive-aggressive.
Which just drives you right back into the fawn response to make up for it. It's an endless cycle.
It really is a closed loop.
So, what does this all mean? How do we break it? This brings us to point 5. You have to stop being afraid to say no.
which is much easier said than done.
Oh, completely. Saying no feels incredibly uncomfortable, so you keep saying yes even when it hurts you. And that is where the problem starts.
Yeah, the It Girl source points out that I don't want to is actually a valid reason.
Yeah.
But to a chronic people pleaser.
It feels horribly selfish. The guilt is like a physical weight. How does the listener bypass that guilt?
Well, you don't bypass it. You have to endure it through a process called extinction learning.
Basically, exposure therapy.
Exactly. You sit in the extreme discomfort of disappointing someone. You say no, your heart rate spikes, you feel guilty, and you just sit there.
And you realize the sky doesn't fall.
Right. The relationship doesn't instantly end. And over time, your brain learns that disappointing someone isn't a physical threat. That's how the guilt fades.
But how do we communicate that no without starting a massive fight?
By redefining assertiveness. Charlotta's HR notes define assertiveness as the middle ground between passive and aggressive. You don't avoid the conflict, but you don't attack them either.
Okay, so what's the practical strategy for dealing with those boundary pushers?
The biggest thing from the behavioral experts, stop over-explaining.
Oh, people pleasers love to over-explain. I'm so sorry, I can't help. My car broke down and my dog is sick and...
Yeah, and when you do that, you are subtly asking for their permission to say no. You're giving them a list of obstacles to negotiate.
Right, they'll just offer to pick you up since your car is broken.
Exactly. Instead, you need to use short clinical corrections early on.
Like what does a clinical correction sound like?
If someone makes that passive-aggressive joke to test you, you don't laugh. You look them in the eye and say, I don't appreciate that joke. Or if they misrepresent you in a meeting, you say, that's not an accurate reflection of the data.
Just setting a firm price on their behavior without raising your voice.
Exactly. Keep it professional and short. And we see organizations using structural boundaries to help with this too, like the Dove-Lewis strategy.
Oh, right, where they empowered staff to fix their own crises. They capped vacations, and if you needed time off after the cap, the manager wasn't allowed to fix it for you. You had to find your own coverage.
It's brilliant. It removes the default yes from the equation. But ultimately, on a personal level, practice is what makes saying no easier.
Which brings us to the end of this deep dive. Being kind is a powerful, beautiful trait, but it is only effective and honestly only safe when it comes with ironclad boundaries.
Absolutely. Because the moment you respect yourself, people start respecting you too.
Like the psychologist Sean T. Smith noted in the research, each ill-conceived relationship is a little tear in the social fabric. You simply cannot change what you refuse to confront.
And that actually brings up a final thought I want to leave everyone with today.
Let's hear it.
We've established that your chronic yes is often just a mask for your own anxiety. It's a defense mechanism. So consider this. What if the most authentic, honest act of kindness you can perform for yourself tomorrow is to intentionally disappoint someone else?
Oh, wow. That is a heavy thing to think about. Is your flak suit protecting you, or is it just making you a low-resistance target? Start noticing where your inside feelings don't match your outside actions.
Yeah, take a hard look at those boundaries.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.